Right, we're speaking all about Canada. A recent study suggests that up to 70% of students head to Canada to study, and at the moment Canada seems to be thriving places, or one of the thriving places for studies as well as work opportunities, especially for South Africans as well. So today we chat to the founder of Beaver Immigration Consulting about the opportunities available to South Africans in Canada. We are joined on the line by Nicholas Avramus. Nicholas, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on Radio Islam International.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start off. Are many South Africans finding Canada to be a lucrative country to immigrate to, and why so?
Well, thanks so much for having me tonight. Canada is a big destination, not only for South Africans, but from immigrants all over the world. Part of the reason for that is Canada is on a 3-year drive to admit 1.5 million new permanent residents. Why so many people? Well, Canada is a small country. It's a population of 37.7 million, and all the baby boomers are retiring. So they need young, vibrant people to come in and fill the labor shortages.
And then in terms of the visas that they do offer, what sort of visas are available to South Africans, and what are the cost of these visas, and how do you go about securing these visas?
Well, there's numerous visas. Most of them are required a job offer. There's also the point system and express entry, but one of the most popular ways to immigrate to Canada is to go and study. Why is that? How does it work? Well, the Canadian government's philosophy is that they want young people coming to the country and to go through the education system, whether it's a diploma or university degree, 1-year certificate, 2-year diploma or varsity. And the implicit deal is if you make the investment and come and go to school and you assimilate and you like it, they've created a pathway towards citizenship. So how does this work? Well, when you graduate from varsity or college in Canada, the government of Canada will issue you a 3-year open work permit, which is essentially what we call the postgraduate work permit. No other country does this. So on that 3-year work permit that's given to foreign student graduates, if you work in Canada for a year, you can apply for permanent residency, and then in 2 to 3 years, you can apply for citizenship. So study in Canada, whether you're 19 or you're 30 looking to do an MBA or a master's or retool yourself, that's one of the quickest and most efficient ways to enter the country and become a Canadian citizen.
And what are some of the things that people need to consider before wanting to immigrate to Canada? Do they need any sort of qualification beforehand if you want to study at some of the universities, or is it a grade 12 certificate or a matric certificate sufficient to apply to study at the universities there?
That's a great question. For South Africans have a competitive advantage when looking to immigrate to Canada, and that competitive advantage is it's an English-speaking country. So to go study, there's no need for an English test. Again, no need for an English test. And most Canadian universities and colleges, they recognize the South African matric. So it's up to international standard. So South Africans have less scrutiny when applying for study visas to get placement and to get the study visa.
Now, with this year, you mentioned earlier on as well that there is this drive to give people permanent residency in Canada as well. But what about it from the other side? Are many people in Canada looking at other areas and maybe looking to immigrate out of Canada?
That's a very interesting question. As you know, Canada is neighbor to the United States, one of the largest economies in the world. So part of Canada's problem is we lose a lot of our native skilled workers. So I can tell you there's about 1.5, 1.7 million Canadians working in the U.S. So part of the reason Canada has such a large immigration system, and they're always looking to recruit the top immigrants around the world, is to fill our own brain drain that happens to the U.S. which is a major issue.
You mentioned this brain drain, and I've seen this many times being used, this phrase. Could you tell us what it is, or explain to the listeners what exactly is brain drain, and is Canada experiencing such?
Canada's always experienced the brain drain to the U.S. This is something that's been happening since the early 90s. Part of the issue for Canada is the Americans come in, they take the top doctors, lawyers, accountants, go to business schools, and also Canada's biggest problem is we lose our IT workers. So brain drain, it's a concept that has a lot of different connotations in terms, but for Canada, if you look at it, the brain drain is defined as we have a surplus of jobs. We have more job vacancies and skilled workers to fill them, right? Now, is that the case in South Africa? I don't know. But that's why, people always ask me, what should I go study in Canada? What jobs are there? Number one is IT. If you want an instant job after you go to school in Canada, you will get picked up as an IT worker, computer specialists, software engineers, web designers, graphic designers. Those are big jobs in demand because Canada loses a lot of our workforce to Silicon Valley.
Interesting. Nicholas, thank you so much for joining us, giving us insight into this, and giving the listeners a bit of info for those that would like to make that move to Canada. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely evening.